Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with the end of the year book tag. This tag was just recently created by my lovely friend Kier from Kier the Scrivener, whose original video I will link down below, and who was also the one who tagged me, and I'm really excited about these questions. I feel like this has definitely been a tag that we are missing. Like, there's the end of the year book tag that's really more about like planning your end of the year, so I'm really glad that we have one that's like kind of reflecting on the whole year that you're actually supposed to do at the end of the year. Anyway, so number one is, how did you feel about this reading year? You can choose an adjective or expand. And I feel pretty satisfied with my reading. I think I did pretty well on the goals. Like, I had very loose goals, but I'm happy with how I did on them. I feel like I got some more good information about like how I do best with setting goals and like reading and how much to guide my reading. I tried a couple of very different things this year. Like, one of them was like almost no TBRs, and I think that went well, and I just feel like I'm continuing to learn new and helpful things about my reading taste and about how I like to structure or not structure my reading. Number two, what are two phases / authors you went through this year? And I have one very clear phase to talk about, but I don't really have another because like I read so much of everything all the time, and I'm also a multi-reader, so like I read very widely and I also read a lot of different books at once, so it's usually hard for me to pin down a reading phase. Like there was a period where I read a few different kind of, I don't know, cozy feeling classics in around the same time period, but if that was a phase, it was only like 3 books really. But one I can talk about is, for the last couple months of the year, I have definitely been in a phase where I am really loving indie fantasy. Like, I've been finding some really, really good ones, some really like excellent books that I just really love, and I'm so excited to talk about and recommend and review. And if you've already seen my 2022 goals video, I don't know if that's going up before this one, but you will see that that is something I want to continue into the new year. So that's definitely been a phase I'm in, especially like fairy tale inspired indie fantasy. Yeah, I've just like really been enjoying that, and I've been finding a lot of really, really wonderful books. So I'm loving that. I'm kind of still in that phase, I guess, although I do continue to read a lot of other things. Number 3 is, what is the book you regret not reading? I have so many books I wanted to read this year that I didn't, so I just picked one. And that is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bully. I'm so frustrated with myself that I haven't read this yet. I have heard nothing but incredible things. I really was planning to read it this year. Like, I was sure it was going to happen, and it just didn't. Yeah, I'm still going to read it. I'm still very excited to read it, even though I've heard it's very dark. But yeah, like I definitely want to get to this one, and I do hope to prioritize it next year. But yeah, I'm annoyed with myself that I still haven't read it, because I think, did it even come out? Did it come out in 2019? Oh, okay, wait, this was a new release. Why did I think this came out like last year or the year before? Clearly I am struggling with the concept of time right now, but regardless of when this came out, I have been meaning to read it basically since it did come out, and I haven't gotten to it yet, and that is something that needs to change. Number 5, what is a book you wish you talked about more? And this one is like, there are reasons for it, but I still wish that I had talked about it more, and that is Bright Smoke, Cold Fire by Rosamund Hodge. This is the first book in a duology, and the reason that I haven't talked about it a lot is it's a really hard one to describe and to recommend, and it's also one that has an incredibly low Goodreads rating, so clearly it's one that doesn't work for a lot of people, and I just don't really know, like, I don't know how to explain this book in a way that explains why I love it and that does it justice, but also in a way that like helps it find the people who would be more likely to like it. Because honestly, I'm shocked that I enjoyed this as much as I did, just because of how negative everything I had ever heard about this book was. So like, I regret not talking about it more, but I also, it's like, I still don't know how I would talk about it, so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't feel that bad since I'm still figuring out how I would even handle it. But yeah, this is kind of representative of those books where it's like, I really enjoy them, but I don't know how to explain them in a way that people will know if they're likely to enjoy them. Number 5, what is a non-bookish highlight? Movie, show, song, podcast, etc. So besides like getting way more into Taylor Swift these last few years, this is not just this year, this is like the last couple years, and even before that, it was a few years before that, just like allowing myself to love Taylor Swift has been like a big deal for me, because it was one of those moments of like, Oh, internalized misogyny. That's why I didn't like her stuff. Which is not to say that everybody who doesn't like her music is like, it's because of internalized misogyny. I just mean in my case, that's what it was. And so allowing myself to enjoy her and her work has been great. So I've definitely been loving her music lately, not just this year. And then in terms of other media, I don't really watch a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to think of something I could say. Oh, well, one thing I really loved was getting to see the streamed performance of Come From Away. I don't know if that is still available to view. I think it is, so I will link that down below. You have to do Apple TV, I think, to watch it, but you can do a free trial, I'm pretty sure. That was just incredible, and I actually think, now I'm mixing up years again, but I actually think I listened to the cast album the whole way through. Was that this year or last year for the first time? But I really loved that. And I also listened to the cast album for Dogfight for the first time this year, which I also really enjoyed. And actually, this is funny because my friend Hannah from the Hermione is one of the people who recommended Come From Away to me. And she also recommended Dogfight to me, and she was right on both counts. And then the other person who really recommended Come From Away to me was Kier. So yeah, like just both of those are really great shows. Yeah, I loved getting to see that like streamed show. I really hope that that's something that live theater continues to do, because like it's not going to take away from ticket sales, because the people who like to watch theater live, like, and who are able to afford it, are still going to go and see it. But you're also going to have people who don't normally go to live shows or who can't afford to, who now get to experience the storytelling. And I really love that, and I hope we continue doing that. I'm sure I'm going to finish filming this tag and I'm going to remember like a movie or a TV show that I'm like, why didn't I talk about it? But right now I can't remember. Number 7 is, what is the greatest outlier in your books? And I had a hard time with this one because, again, I read so many different things. It's hard for me to have outliers, but I did eventually think of one, and that is Sense and Sensibility, an Amish retelling by Sarah Price, which is just what it sounds like in the title. And I read this for a live show that I was a guest on. It was kind of like an extra credit book, and it was very interesting. I don't think Sarah Price's writing is for me, but I really liked a lot of the elements about like Amish culture and the way that Sense and Sensibility was like reframed in that. So I would definitely read things by other authors that are set in like Amish communities or with Amish characters. I definitely plan to read more from them, even though, like I said, Sarah Price probably isn't for me. Number 8, what book are you most excited to revisit? And I actually just filmed a video, again, I have no idea when it's going up, of books that I really am excited to reread in 2022. So I could have picked any of those, but I instead wanted to pick a book that is not like a favorite of the year necessarily. It's not like it's not an obvious answer, but it's just one that I've realized I'm really looking forward to rereading. And that is Curses by Liz Mcbride. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that is gender swapped. And this is another book that is very polarizing, and I absolutely understand why. I say pretty much every time I talk about this book that I think a good way to know what you're getting is to know that the cover does not really reflect the tone of the story. It's not nearly as dark and atmospheric. There are some serious moments, and it's not like cheesy or like overly goofy as a retelling, but there are some moments of humor, and overall it has a lighter feel than this cover suggests. And it's one that I know has not worked for people, and I totally understand that, but I really loved it. I really liked the characters and the romance, and it has one of my favorite romance tropes, which I will be talking about in a future question. And I also really like the Beauty and the Beast aspects and the gender swapped aspects, and I just really enjoyed this. I had a great time with it, and it's one that like I kind of want to reread soon, even though I only read it a few months ago. I just really enjoyed it. I just realized that I skipped the question that I thought was coming up. So going back to number 4, that is, what is something you learned from your reading this year? And Kier did something like really like thoughtful and profound, and the thing that I thought of when I read this question was like a trope that I realized I really love. And I happened to read like I think at least 3 different books this year that have that trope in them. And I love it. And I don't know if this like solidified how much I enjoy it, or if it made me pay attention to it more, or what, because I think I've probably read this before, but that is in a book where there are 2 characters, and one of them is helping the other character with their love life, and then the 2 of them end up developing feelings. Like, I just love it. I think it creates some really interesting character drama and like character dynamics without getting into cheating territory, which I don't like. The angst is so good. I love it. And Curses is one of the books that did that I read this year. So yeah, that's something I really enjoy. As far as a more like thoughtful or profound thing I learned about my reading this year, I don't know if this is so much something that I learned or something that like I don't know, I was like inspired to do this year, but there are some things that make me very angry about the way that we talk about age ranges. And it's not that I learned that this year, but I think what I learned this year is I'm not gonna feel better about that until I actually like do something specific about it. And obviously there's a lot of like other issues to talk about with publishing, and I'm not trying to say this is like the most important thing we all need to spend time on, but I do think it's a pretty important issue, and I do think it affects other aspects of publishing. And like when we talk about like telling people stories and whose stories are you paying attention to and that kind of thing, and just the way that we review books that are written for people who are not like us. So I do think there is some connection between those things, and there have been some things that I have seen or heard this year that just like continuously remind me of the complete lack of respect that some readers have for books that are written for people younger than them, books that have characters who are younger than them, just like. Anyway, I have a lot of feelings about it, and so I guess my like more thoughtful answer for this question is I learned that I am not gonna be, like, I'm not gonna feel, like I said, even a little bit better about it, or like we've made a little progress, unless I actually do something specific about that. So this is my way of saying I have a couple of ideas for video series next year, or in 2022. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, and it is something that I talk about a lot in my content, but I think this year just made me realize especially that the level of anger I have about it is not going to be taken care of by continuing to do what I'm doing. This is making it sound much more dramatic than it is. I'm not trying to, but anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling about that, but look out for some video ideas I have. Okay, so going back to the rest of these questions, now that I went back to the one I skipped, number 9 is what video are you most proud of? And I think one of the ones I'm most proud of this year is my kind of double review and discussion video that I did on 2 books about St. Joan of Arc, because I think that was a pretty in-depth video. I was really nervous about how it would come out, but I think it came out well. I've gotten a really great response from it, which has been nice, and it was also a video I was very nervous to post because it was something I had such strong feelings on, and because like it wasn't just like feelings about those books and like this particular person, St. Joan of Arc. It was like a lot of it was about that, but it was also like this wider conversation about how we adapt historical figures and like how we talk about them, and when people writing historical fiction change things, which is expected and fine, but like the choice to change certain things over others, or like the way to frame things in a certain way, the way to like invent certain things, like how that can contribute to like how that can really shape like modern society's view of a person, like how that can interfere with getting to know this historical person on their own terms. I explained it more thoroughly in that video, so I will link it down below. But it was just like a really big topic that I was nervous about because I wasn't sure I'd be able to really articulate everything, like all of my many thoughts about this, but I do think it came out well, so I am proud of that one. And finally, number 10 is what is your favorite last line of a book? And I'm gonna change this question a little bit because we know that I'm really bad at quotes in books, but I especially don't pay attention to last lines usually. Like even if it's a really good one and it's one that I would think I would remember, I don't often remember it. So instead, I just went with a book that I remembered I had a favorite quote from, because I have been tracking some of those this year. And that is from The Mere Season by Anna Marie McLemore, which is one of my favorite books of the year, one of my favorite authors. And there's just a line in this that I really enjoyed that I wanted to share. Feminismo, my mother says, means both being allowed to open your own door if you like, and knowing you are fantastic enough for a man to open it for you. I just really loved that line. I thought it was very funny and also very thoughtful, and it's one that I just really remembered. And as a bonus, I wanted to share one from Amina's Song by Hannah Khan. Maybe my heart had to ache as it grew to make room for all the people and places I love. So those are a couple of quotes. That was the end of the tag. I don't know if I'm going to tag anyone specifically, but if you're looking for a way to wrap up your reading, I officially tag you. Please do it. I really enjoyed this. Thank you again, Kier, for tagging me. And because I apparently had a little bit of a theme going with some of these books, please comment down below and let me know a book that is very polarizing that you really enjoyed this year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!